I'm definitely seeing a fatigue from brands being tired of working with partners that are only willing to measure their own work. And again, transparency is the lever that brands have to, regain control of measurement and understanding effectiveness of their media spend in a way that is truly cross-platform and truly unbiased.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Identity Architects, the InfoSum podcast that spotlights the leaders in the media industry shaping the future of data-driven advertising. I'm your host, Ben Cicchetti, and this week I'm joined by Giovanni Gardelli, VP DSP Data Products at Yahoo. Gio, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Ben. Excited to be here today.
I'm excited to learn more about you, excited to learn more about Yahoo and its DSP offering. For anyone who doesn't know you, though, can you just give us a quick introduction to yourself and also to Yahoo?
Sure. So you already said my title. So I focus on data products for the DSP. That's first and foremost product management. So within data products, we include identity, targeting, measurement, all our data pipelines, data lakes, and so on. But there's also a bunch of product adjacent roles that sit in my team, like solution engineering, or technical support staff, business intelligence, and a couple of other things. So the common denominator across all those teams is data.
Yeah, well, we love that at InfoSum, and we love data collaboration. So I think we've got a lot to talk about for sure. But we'll start with our quickfire questions to get to know you a little bit better. Starting with, what's your earliest memory of advertising?
Well, I guess I'll date myself, but when I was a kid, I think the internet was not a thing yet. So all my early memories are TV commercials. So lots of CPGs. I think I still recall some of the songs of the products, and it was interesting growing up to learn that a lot of those brands are global brands. We just renamed them in Italian with something. We had Mastro Lindo, which I discovered being Mr. Clean.
Interesting.
Yeah, lots of TV commercials and short, memorable songs from them.
Yeah, it's always the jingles that get you.
Exactly.
And if you take yourself back to those days, hearing those jingles, what did you want to be when you were younger?
So I think the common denominator, as every kid, I think, you change your mind every few years, but the common denominator has always been about building stuff. Mm-hmm. I was obsessed with Legos for quite a long time. And then during high school, I became very interested in architecture and this, mix of math and art. And in college, I wanted to build video games. Again, I think there was this mix of math and art and building. Yeah. And now I'm building ad servers, which is, probably kind of similar with this, math and art and building themes all interconnected.
Yeah. And math and art, that's the two sides of the marketing mix, right? It's the data, exactly. And it's the science and it's the art form. So what was your first job in either advertising or marketing then?
So I interned at a startup that was building an ad network. My job was effectively sales, both publishers and advertisers just bringing on the network. This was pre-RTB, when really, the network, the ad network model was the dominant one dealing with remnant inventory. So it was a really, really, really interesting and formative experience.
I love that. What do you think it was about the advertising industry that drew you in then? And then I guess what keeps you in it to this very day?
Yeah, good question. As I was thinking about, what industries to, join after college, what kind of jobs to apply to, I was trying to abstract myself from the specifics and try to figure out, okay, what are the themes or the kind of abstract characteristics that I want in a job or an industry. And I realized in college that I was getting bored of everything very quickly. And so I decided that if I didn't find a job or an industry that changed every 6 months, I would have to change job every 6 months.
Okay.
And that's kind of a pain. And so
Yeah.
eventually I figured that advertising was checking that very important box for me. I feel, I've been at Yahoo now almost 7 years, and I feel I had more than 10 jobs in those
Yeah.
7 years, just because of how rapidly the industry changes. So this constant change is really what drew me to advertising and what kept me in it for so long.
Yeah, and it's the need, I guess, for constant innovation, constantly building new products, new offerings. That must be super exciting. You
Exactly.
must also get to interact with a lot of people at kind of different stages of their career. So, what advice would you give to someone who's maybe just starting in their career in the crazy world we call media and advertising?
Good question. Gosh. Well, the world has changed quite a bit since I was in my early days. But I would say, and this is probably something that is true for all, B2B software, starting as a trader has been incredibly valuable for my experience. If you, as a, to become a product manager, as it's very hard to develop true empathy for your users and customers in B2B, especially enterprise, because you can't really use your product.
Yeah.
And which is, not true on on consumer products, for example, right? Which it's much easier to become a consumer of your own products. So
Yeah.
uh, starting as a trader allowed me to understand much more deeply the use cases of advertisers, how they think about their budgets, targeting, measurement, as well as publishers and yield and monetization. And I feel it was over a decade ago, but I still take advantage of that experience in my day to day a decade later. So finding ways to be a customer of the products,
Yeah.
develop empathy for eventually, if you transition to product management, your customers and your users, I think it's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And I completely agree on kind of having that foundational knowledge and kind of being, as you say, kind of a customer of your own product. A two-part question. What keeps you awake at night? So I guess what's the stress factor? And then what gets you up in the morning and motivated?
Um, Again, I think that probably changed a dozen times in, in the last few years, as you end up solving the problems that keep you up at night. Uh, I would say right now it's a very interesting time because it's the same thing that keeps me up at night and gets me up in the morning, which is how to make sure that my team is embedding AI tools
Mm.
in their day-to-day job and workflows and processes. Uh, it keeps me up at night because as much as we are investing in that, it's such a new and nascent set of technologies that it takes time to figure out exactly how to do it the right way. And I have this constant feeling that we're not moving fast enough.
Mm.
But it also gets me up in the morning because I do see a tremendous potential to transform the way we operate across all the roles I mentioned. Product management, support, solution engineering, business intelligence, in ways that we can't even fully grasp and imagine. But it's very exciting to think about those possibilities and those capabilities and what they can unlock for us.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you said something a little bit earlier on as well about kind of how quickly our industry moves and how exciting that can be. But it also can make the industry incredibly complex. So, how would you describe what you do within media and advertising to a 10-year-old?
Uh, I would describe it the same way I describe it to my dad,
Yeah.
which is, my job is to make sure you see ads you like,
Mm.
so you can keep enjoying a bunch of websites and apps for free. And I always try to connect the fact that ads ultimately sponsor a huge chunk of the web, because I think a lot of people don't think about it, and it gives them a new perspective. But I try to stay away from cookies, IDs, ad requests, and RTB protocols, and so on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that's a great way to look at it. And as you say, I think it's a good reminder to people that, there is a reason the vast majority of the internet is free. And it's because, these solutions exist. The
Exactly.
final of our quickfire questions, personal favorite of mine, often not a personal favorite of the guests that I have on the podcast. If there was a song that was a soundtrack to your life, what would it be?
Well, I'm almost 3 years old, so I've been fully immersed in, YouTube and
Yeah.
Disney, movies and shows. But watching them on repeat as an adult makes you realize that some of them are actually quite relatable. I would say in the Moana movie, there's a song that is called "How Far I'll Go," which is about her, wanting to like leave her safe island and explore the waters and venture beyond the reef. That I find very relatable for my life. Again, I come from a very small town in Italy. Most of my friends are still there, and I ended up on the other side of the world
Yeah.
doing very different things. So yeah, a Moana song. Who would
I
have
love
guessed?
that. I'm a big Moana fan. I could totally get that. And it'll be the first Disney song to get added to our playlist because we have a playlist of everyone's
There you go.
choices. So
I am
I will
sorry
love
to any
adding to
listener
that.
of that playlist.
They'll love it. They'll feel inspired. I think it's great. Let's get a bit deeper into what you're doing at Yahoo. And obviously, we've already touched on data a lot, and clearly, first party data specifically has become more and more valuable. But also, there is a desire to protect it to a higher degree than ever before. So, how do you think about balancing the integrity and security of Yahoo's first party data with that increasing demand for collaboration from clients and partners?
Yeah, absolutely. So Yahoo DSP has preferred access to Yahoo data, being basically two organizations under the same roof, and that includes a lot of very valuable deterministic and rich signals from user logins, purchase receipts, search queries, and much more. Um, and historically, our focus to keep the data protected and safe, but also actionable, has been to build tools within the DSP to access it, query it, understand it, and ultimately activate on it. So we had a very much of a siloed approach. Um, I think as technologies improve and gain more adoption, there's definitely opportunities to um, make it easier for different brands to tap into it and collaborate with us without necessarily having to use our own UIs and our own tools. And so again, democratizing access a little bit more while keeping the data safe and avoid sending it out and sharing it too broadly. So I'm excited about some of the evolution in data collaboration technologies in the last couple of years, especially as we seem to finally have found new ways to make our data discoverable and actionable and valuable for the ecosystem without having to compromise on security necessarily.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. And obviously, it's super exciting from a Yahoo perspective because of the data that you do have access to, and that bit, and the that how valuable that can be to others. And obviously, Yahoo kind of sits at this unique intersection of media and technology. So, how does that kind of hybrid identity shape how you approach data collaboration, especially as you integrate those kind of secure environments you've talked about, like clean rooms, into
Yeah.
your advertising strategy?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, we have different teams responsible for the different parts of the business. So, I am fully focused on the DSP. However, being able to work so closely with our, publisher counterparts, I think allowed us to develop a lot of empathy for publishers and data owners. And I think it allowed us as a DSP to become friendlier and better to work with and easier to work with any publisher, not just ourselves. And a bunch of the products that we have released that are publisher facing have been very successful. I'm thinking of Connect ID or Backstage, which is our direct to publisher product. I think they've all been successful in part because of this empathy that we've been able to develop within our own walls. And that empathy has allowed us to truly understand publishers' concerns, what they care about, what compromises are they willing to make or not make, what constraints they have, and find ways to collaborate with them, meeting all their requirements, basically, without necessarily putting them in uncomfortable positions or just turning away from opportunities to work with them just on our own terms. So it's a long way. It's a long answer to basically say empathy, I think, is really what it's our superpower as a DSP when it comes to the media side.
I love that. And I think one of the things you've touched on is this distinction that's emerging between data access and data ownership. So, how do you see that playing out across the industry at the moment?
Yeah, I would say, what we are seeing is that finally, I would say, we are starting to be able to decouple data access and usage from data sharing,
Mm-hmm.
which I think has been they've always been interchangeable and synonyms for a very long time. There was no way to use data if for somebody else to use your data if you didn't share it with them. And so, especially in verticals that are heavily regulated, like pharma or finance, or specific advertisers and brands with their own strategies and policies about their first party data. We're definitely see this trend picking up. Again, there's pockets, but those pockets are starting to mature. They're starting to develop playbooks, best practices, and processes, and we do expect more and more verticals and more brands to kind of eventually adopt the same practices. So maybe I'm too optimistic, but I feel we're at the turning point of a hockey stick, right? Where there's been a little bit of usage with like low growth for quite a long time, and we're just figuring it out and being ready to scale adoption.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one of the things that's kind of one of the other areas that's emerging in this industry right now is this tension between maintaining a closed ecosystem and offering partners access to the data that you've just kind of outlined. So how does Yahoo navigate this, especially with agency partners and others building their own environments and pushing for more interoperability?
Yeah, that's a problem, if you will, that did keep me up at night for
Okay.
quite a long time, several years ago, when we started, building Yahoo Connect ID.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we wanted to keep our data safe and secure, but we understood, from day one, the need of uh, collaboration capabilities with our partners and agencies. And so our answer to that has been interoperability. We launched Connect ID almost 5 years ago, and since day one, we were interoperable with several partners in the ecosystem, from measurement, targeting companies, agencies, and their own internal planning and measurement and targeting tools. And over the last 5 years, we've scaled the number of interoperable partners to over 40 across the ecosystem. So I think we found a very good compromise between silos and openness, with interoperability being being that middle ground and good compromise for all participants.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's really helped push a lot of this industry forward is something you've already referenced, which is this maturing of clean rooms or data collaboration technology as a whole. What are you seeing as the most scalable and strongest use cases for that data collaboration technology? Is measurement still the clearest winner, or are there new applications emerging that you're seeing?
Um, what I'm seeing in terms of accelerated adoption is actually not use case driven, but rather entities driven. What I mean by that is, at the end of the day, there has to be an entity, an advertiser or a publisher that is championing the technology
Mhm.
from a strategy, a policy, or in general a belief that that technology is going to improve things for them.
Yeah.
And I think in the past, advertisers have been focused on measurement, but ultimately it is hard for an advertiser to truly champion clean rooms across the board because in some capacity, pretty much every advertiser has to deal with walled gardens, and walled gardens have been somehow resistant to opening up in any way their data. I don't think it's necessarily a security or privacy problem. I think it's about wanting to own their own measurement and not wanting to be as transparent. But on the supply side, publishers, especially in the CTV ecosystem, have been those entities that I feel are championing clean room adoption. Uh, they are big enough to be able to impose their own rules on the buy side. They don't have this challenge with walled gardens being on the sell side and not the buy side. And also CTV is still nascent enough as a channel that buyers are willing to adapt and figure out new technologies and new ways to trade and to collaborate, which I don't think they would necessarily be willing to do on web, for example, where we have 2 decades of um, you know status quo effectively
Yeah.
on ways to do things that are considered easier, even if not necessarily safer. So I feel CTV publishers are the champions of clean rooms and safer data collaboration technologies, and they'll be the ones driving adoption across the ecosystem.
Yeah, I agree, and look, that's definitely what we saw at InfoSum when we launched a few years ago. Channel 4 and ITV, the two of the largest broadcasters here in the UK, were the first to adopt our technology, and they've been able to evolve, build new products, build new solutions, and kind of refine those solutions as they've gone on. So yeah, that championing we've definitely seen coming from that side. When you think about media companies and brands, how can those parties ensure that data collaboration doesn't become more about data commoditization, where everyone wants access, but very few are adding value?
Um, that's a very tough question. um, I would say there's probably some low hanging fruits. Um, just having some policies around audits and
Mm,
making sure that periodically every company, whether if it's an advertiser or a publisher, is reviewing um, who has access to data, and if there's revenue flowing in each direction, uh, is is valuable, right? We
yeah,
see all the time, or we hear in some cases, scenarios of publishers that are sending out a bunch of data to buyers, and buyers are not buying, or advertisers that have established integrations to share their first party data on buying platforms, and then they stop using the buying platforms and they forget to turn off those connections, right?
yeah,
So a basic audit of data flows and data consumption and utility, I think, can go a long way for many companies out there on both demand and supply side. Again, there's a lot more things that the brands can do, but just basically aligning the execution to whatever strategy they have. I think it's a no-brainer, but it's also an area where we do see quite a lot of gaps right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's super important. And one of the things we haven't touched on, but is the gift that keeps on giving, which is kind of the evolving measurement landscape. What are your views on that current landscape, especially as brands are demanding more and more transparency and accuracy across platforms?
Yeah, I think transparency and accuracy are really a symptom of the problem that brands feel and the objective they have,
Mm.
and that is to understand true incrementality. And with so much fragmentation across buying platforms, you have walled gardens, you have retail media networks, you have a bunch of disjointed offerings, all measured in siloed. Large brands that have to activate across 5, 10, 20 different platforms are really struggling to understand incrementality and make incrementality actionable when it comes to media planning and budget allocation. And I'm definitely seeing a fatigue from brands being tired of working with partners that are only willing to measure their own work. And again, transparency is the lever that brands have to regain control of measurement and understanding effectiveness of their media spend in a way that is truly cross-platform and truly unbiased. And clean rooms become the very often the tool to gain that transparency back. So it's I think it's driven by incrementality ultimately, and this need to truly understand. I'm spending an extra dollar. Am I getting an extra $3 of sales, or am I just showing ads to somebody who would have bought anyway?
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I completely agree about kind of the approach and where the industry is heading. And obviously, as I said, measurement is the gift that keeps on giving. The latest gift that keeps on giving is AI, as it continues to be the dominant conversation at any industry event I go to. Today, how is Yahoo using AI across its ad products, particularly in ways that enhance targeting and measurement while preserving that user consumer trust?
Mhm. I'll split my answer between traditional AI and machine learning versus generative AI.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to quote unquote traditional AI and machine learning, Yahoo has been a leader in the category for quite some time with products like predictive audiences and blueprint performance being known in the industry as top class when it comes to again audience targeting and optimization. Um, and so that's something that we have developed over the years, and we feel pretty good about where we are. Uh, Gen AI is the new kid in town, and that's been our focus in more recent times. What we have decided is to start focusing on the most tedious use cases for our traders and buyers and partners. Um, so we can give them time back to take on more strategic and creative tasks.
Yeah.
And so troubleshooting and recommendations are our top two priorities across the board. Measurement, targeting, but also supply, creative optimization. How can we simplify troubleshooting in our platform across all those use cases? If things are not working as expected, hey, I'm not recording any conversion,
Mm.
or my segments are not scaling, my audiences are not scaling. So again, traders can spend less time troubleshooting and more time thinking about how to be more strategic with their budgets, their campaigns, and their overall objectives.
Yeah, I agree. And that seems to be the kind of the biggest win from my perspective for this kind of AI revolution we're seeing, is that it is allowing people to focus on more creative things, more quote unquote exciting things than was the past. I want to kind of revisit the way we kind of started this conversation, which is talking about building and building products. And you're in an interesting role that spans strategy, product, and partnerships. When you're building those products, what have you learned about aligning internal teams across those functions to deliver real innovation and not just talk or vaporware?
Absolutely. I've learned a lot in the last few years on this, topic as, I took on more responsibilities and more roles. I would say having the right organizational setup and giving people the right incentives are, you know, the the two top priorities.
Yeah.
We all work with very, very smart and capable people, and oftentimes we get in the way. And so, making sure that number one, they can run as fast as possible, and that's the org design and org setup. And two, they run in the right direction, which is, having the right incentives, I think solves the majority of the problems on their own. Um, what I found is, a lot of times we have issues or there's friction and we start understanding what's going on and how to fix it. 90% of the time the problem is in one of those two areas. Either
Mm.
people have been given the wrong incentives, and so they end up working against your objectives, pursuing theirs,
Yeah.
or they're not organized in a correct way, and that's when you have duplication of roles across org, or like conflicting um, conflicting roles and responsibilities. And so again, making them run as fast as possible and making sure that they do run as fast as possible in the right direction, it's 90% of the job. So people can just do their own thing and we get out of the way.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll keep it on the topic of people because we are a very people focused industry. And obviously, that's what this podcast has always been about from the start. It's about individuals like you who are pioneering those new ways to use data to deliver those better experiences. So, when you look to people that you admire in the industry, who would you nominate for me to interview in an upcoming episode of Identity Architects?
Assuming you don't take repeats, because there's obviously quite a few people that I truly respect that you have already had on the podcast. I would nominate Paul Farrow from Microsoft Ads. I think Microsoft, similar to Yahoo, if not more, is in an interesting position when it comes to privacy and advertising, owning a browser, an operating system, a pretty significant publishing business, as well as an ad tech one. And so every time I chat with Paul, I learn something, and it's always very valuable insights and perspectives. So I would love to hear him chatting with you as well.
Definitely. We will reach out to Paul. He's fantastic, and we'll try and get him on the podcast. But Gio, thank you so much for being on Identity Architects with me today. It's been so interesting to hear about all the work that Yahoo is doing. I think Yahoo's one of those brands that we all know because they were the original innovator on the internet. So we've all experienced that Yahoo world. So to hear about kind of the modern, how Yahoo is driving those incredible experiences and driving more value for advertisers and media owners is super interesting for me. So I just want to really thank you for being on Identity Architects with me today.
Thank you so much for the chat and for having me today. It was a pleasure.